and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90.
Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown, Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races, and a bang back inside, he takes it to the house, 85 yards for Daniel.
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Welcome back, Tiger fans, to another edition of the Gold Standard Podcast, where we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. I'm sitting here on Sunday afternoon after the abomination that I watched yesterday in Tiger Stadium, hoping to bring you some good news about the future of the Tigers. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the comments. Make sure you leave your comments, subscribe, share, like it, turn on notifications so you don't miss any news here from the Gold Standard Podcast. I'm sorry for the lump and the lull in content lately. If you're a pet owner, you know how crazy it is, but I had to lay to rest one of my dogs, Mr. Bentley, who was with us for 12 long, beautiful years of his life. So rest in peace, Bentley, in the comments. He was like a family member to us. So it's like burying a child, putting down the child. So I took a pause on the content for that the purposes of just kind of getting myself together mentally. I'm still kind of shaking, but look, I got a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in that travesty of a game we saw yesterday, and there's some brightness coming in the future, possibly with Lane Kiffin as coach. So here we go. Tigers won yesterday in Tiger Stadium, a score of 13-10. That's right, 13-10 versus Western Kentucky. And I made a pod before in previous weeks talking about how bad the offense is, and it's just from top to bottom. It's a structural failure. It's a systematic failure just from top to bottom. I don't know if I've quite seen anything like it since I've been watching. Ross Dellinger put out the tweet last night. The Tigers will not score 25 points next week against Oklahoma, so this will be the first season in a large number of years where the Tigers hadn't scored over 25 points in one game all season. So where do you start there? I think it obviously starts with the people who are out of the door. Brian Kelly, Joe Sloan, obviously out of the door. I think a lot of it you can lay at the feet of Garrett Nussmeier this year. A lot of it you can lay at the feet of the offensive line, the players, all the way across. But I'll start with the coaching staff. Brian Kelly, Joe Sloan, Frank Wilson, Cortez Hankton, and Brad Davis. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. No disrespect to any of those guys. This is strictly off performance. I'm criticizing and commenting on your performance as coaches, not who you are as gentlemen or who you are as a man. So it has nothing to do with that. But to have an offense that's a D1 offense with all the resources that LSU has, with all the players that they have, with the recruiting that they have, with the NIL that they put in, to say that we can't score 25 points in a season more than at all, not at all. We can't score more than 25 points is an embarrassment. And you should all be embarrassed and ashamed. And if it were me, honestly, I'm to that point. I don't care if any of the guys are back on offense. I just don't. I just would not blame a coach for not wanting to tie himself to anything on this offense. And I know the fans are going to be Frank Wilson. He's in Frank Wilson. Look, LSU has always recruited its areas well. Some of that is due to Frank, but a lot of that is because kids grow up in Louisiana and they want to go to LSU. So I would say most people that have a conscience, most people that have a heartbeat, most people that have any semblance of a personality and the ability to build relationships can recruit well in New Orleans area to LSU with those letters on your chest. But I just think this offensive performance that we've seen this year has just been so bad, so porous, so anemic, so disgusting, so disgraceful, so embarrassing that why would you want to save anyone? Give me the logic other than the feelings that we have for Frank Wilson and the sentiment that we have for Frank Wilson, which is an amazing story. But on the field, what has anybody done on the offensive side to retain their job, including Frank Wilson? His running back rotations have been crazy all year. Harlem Berry has disappeared at times in games. When he was rolling earlier in the season in games, he disappeared in the second half. Didn't play him a whole lot until the end of the season. We got a lot of Jawan Johnson. I mean, come on. Come on. Brad Davis. This offensive line is quite possibly one of the worst ones that I've ever seen in my life in professional sports. Your guys are pitiful. Your guys can't get a push against anyone. That's D1 and non-con. They can't get a push against Western Kentucky. They can't get a push against Louisiana Tech. They can't get a push against anybody. And all Caden Durham and Harlem Berry need is this much. They need a crease to be able to make plays because they're such dynamic and electric playmakers. But you can't give it to them. Your guys can't give it to them. What are we doing Monday through Friday? Where's the toughness? Where's the gall? Where's the stomach? Where's the guts? Where's the balls for this offensive line to stand up and say, you're not going to kill my quarterback constantly. We are going to be able to establish the run against somebody. We have not established the run against anyone. Against anyone. And Brad Davis, you're culprit number one with that performance with you and that offensive line. Cortez Hankton, your guys are overrated. And I like some of your guys. I like Xavier. I like Aaron Anderson. But some of your guys are overrated. We paid a lot of money to go to the portal and get some of these guys who haven't given you any of the ROI on what you paid. Not even half. And then we got 8 wide receivers. Well, that's probably part of the problem. You got 8 wide receivers and you're trying to feed 8 wide receivers. There's guys on the field in the last 2 games that hadn't been on the field all season. And all of a sudden they're on the field. What are you doing? Why early in the season we get a first down and we're rotating an entire group of wide receivers and we're struggling to get the play calls in on time because you want to shuffle out 4 wide receivers after a first down? You've done a horrible coaching job. Who have you recruited to LSU that has developed as a player? Aaron Anderson was a transfer. Xavier Thomas was a transfer. Everybody else that sees meaningful time is a transfer. Barrion Brown, transfer. Nick Anderson, transfer. You guys, I mean, you really should be embarrassed. I mean, just look at the offensive performance that you get. And I got the box score. Let's look at the box score. Let's see what we got here. Michael Van Buren, 25 of 42, 202, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Harlem Berry, 18 carries, 80 yards. Xavier Thomas, 6 catches, 47 yards. Trey Ayers, 6 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Barrion Brown, 5 catches, 37 yards. Awful. 202 total passing yards, 126 rushing yards, a grand total of 4.2 yards per play. 328 yards against Western Kentucky. 3 of 16 on third down. 1 of 3 on fourth down. 2 sacks allowed, 7 punts. And you kill time of possession 35-24. And you still could only muster 13 points against Western Kentucky. Guys, I talked about Michael Van Buren last week after the game. He had an okay game, but honestly, and I talked to my dad about this, MVB's been a 50% passer in high school. Last year at Mississippi State, numbers this year is roughly going to be around a 50% passer. If you're a 50% passer, you just don't all of a sudden morph into a 70% passer or a 65% passer. You just kind of are who you are. And I like MVB, but he missed a lot of throws, a lot of easy ones. There's one where he tried to go to Trey'Dez Green, and he's got Bauer Sharp right there in his face. And sure, he's got pressure to try to make a lot of plays, but look, your job as a quarterback is to get the first down and keep the chains moving. It's not to be a hero. Sometimes hero ball comes in the small plays because you got a broken tackle and then it becomes an explosive. But he missed a lot of throws. A lot of throws in the dirt too. A lot of low ones. Go back and look at the stats. At least 5 or 6 throws that are just low in the dirt when guys are open. So if you told me LSU's 2026 quarterback is not on the roster, I probably would agree with you. But shout out to Blake Baker and his defense again for giving us the opportunity to run Western Kentucky off of the field. Western Kentucky is a pretty good offense. You know, you saw some of the schematic stuff that they did early on that we can't even do. We're a D1 school that has far more resources and supposedly far better players and coaches than what Western Kentucky does. But you saw the play designs. You saw what they came up with. And it gave us fits in the first half. When have we ever given anybody fits on offense this year? When have we ever taken advantage of anything? When have we ever exploited a matchup? When have we ever been creative? When have we ever had a flow? When have we ever had an identity? Guys, we are 11 games into the season with 1 game left. And what is this team's identity offensively? I think the identity is dysfunction. I think the identity is being outcoached. I think the identity is not knowing what you're doing. So with that said, where do you do? What do you do? How do you, we have 2 more games of this. We have Oklahoma coming, who has an amazing defense, and then we have the bowl game. We're not going to score over 25 points in either of those games. This offense just struggles too much. And then every time we do get something, here's a penalty, here's a false start. Same old, same old. Teams just not prepared offensively. Teams just not ready. They don't exploit anything. They don't get their best players the ball in space to get them to do anything. I just really, truly wonder what they practice every week. And you say, well, why you say that? Because what do they do well? What is improved? Do they look in sync? Do they look better? From game 1 to now, they look worse. Brian Kelly's gone. Geauxld's gone. Nussmeier's gone. And we still look terrible. So that's a system issue. The whole engine just needs to be replaced at this point. It's not just the tires. The whole engine needs to be replaced. And the body. Just need a new car at this point. So to wrap up, it was an embarrassing loss of faith in what these offensive coaches and players and staff can put together and at least go out and entertain us on a Saturday, right? We have to struggle through a game like Western Kentucky to fight for our lives to win that game against Western Kentucky at home, night game, Tiger Stadium, senior night, your final home game of the season. And that's the performance that the fans got. It's just embarrassing. So moving on to brighter pastures, the coaching updates. This week has been a week that I've called as the lane turns. Reports have come out everywhere since last Friday. There was a meeting with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss Athletic Director. I have the statement posted on my TikTok. You can go read it there. But basically, it says Lane Kiffin's future will be decided after the Egg Bowl next Friday. They'll make some sort of announcement Saturday. Now, what do I take from that? Again, I preface this by saying I don't have any sources or any inside knowledge. I'm just trying to do common sense on everything, right? So if Lane Kiffin was staying at Ole Miss, it would be poignant for him and the athletic director to come out, stand in one accord, lockstep, and say the extension is signed. Everybody can relax. Let's get back to regular scheduled activities. But that's not what happened. What do I think happened? I think that Lane Kiffin sat down with the athletic director and whoever else was in the room, and I think he said, guys, thanks, but no thanks. I'm leaving for greener pastures. Whether it's LSU or Florida, I'm not going to act like I know. I feel like it's LSU, but I could be wrong. So I think Ole Miss said they had to come to – they played this strong arm in the media like, oh, he's got to make a decision before the weekend, but I never thought that was possible because what was the alternative? Were they going to fire him or suspend him? Based on what? So I never knew what that fluff was about. So basically, you got a coach with an undecided future that's going to be announced after the game next week. It just doesn't. If I was a fan of Ole Miss, it wouldn't give me confidence that Lane's going to still be my head coach next year. And I know there's stuff out there. Look, Lane has Jimmy Sexton, who's the best in the game. There's going to always be stuff out there. But Florida's interviewing John Summerall. And then they weren't. And then they were, LSU's they're going to wait. They're going to stand pat. Lane is their guy. I do believe they got an offer on the table to make him one of the most lucrative coaches in college football history. I do believe that they're ready to back him with the NIL that he wants. I do believe that they're ready to give him the keys to the kingdom. And I hear a lot of stuff on social media, especially on my TikTok, about he's not going to LSU because the governor. He's not going to LSU. Look, come on, man. Come on. If you guys don't keep up with LSU sports and LSU football, please don't be out there making claims about the football programs ran by the governor or ran by politics, because it never has been and it never will be. You had someone who was taking advantage of the moment in the governor, trying to get his name out there, trying to get some face time out there, trying to get some buzz for himself out there. That's it, guys. It's nothing more, nothing less. And then, people ask me, well, why would we choose LSU? The thing about LSU is that you don't have to be an amazing coach to win a championship at LSU. Nick Saban was an excellent coach. But was it Les Miles? Was it Orgeron? Heck, look at what Brian Kelly just did. None of those guys are great X's and O's coaches. But at Florida, you've won because you had Steve Spurrier. You won because you had Urban Meyer. Other than that, you haven't done anything. And at Ole Miss, you hadn't done anything. So I think if you look at it objectively, you see a higher ceiling at a place where I can go and do something that 3 other guys have done in the last 20 years. And I know for a fact I'm a better coach than 2 of those guys. And they're planning on giving me all the resources in the world, paying me well, giving me the keys to the kingdom. That's what I think LSU has over the other suitors in Ole Miss and Florida. Excuse me. So we wait. We wait. If you follow my podcast, Lane has always been my number one candidate. The ability to have an offense that's always in the top. They have an easy offense for the quarterback and to make it efficient. Quarterback's always efficient in the offense. Look at what he's done with Trinidad Chambliss. Look at what he did with Blake Sims at Alabama. I mean, the guy can design an offense. I guarantee you against Western Kentucky, he's going to put up more than 13 points. So that's who I want as my next head coach. Will he be the next head coach? We will have to wait and see. A week from now, we will for sure have our answer because they came out and say, this is all going to end on Saturday. We're going to know one way or another. Is he staying or is he going? Where is he going? So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Turn on notifications. Hit that like button. Hit that notification bell. Subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends. Make sure you tell your loved ones. Make sure you tell your Tiger fans that this is the place to tune in for LSU news. This is the gold standard. What we love purple, but it's all gold. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. God bless you. Have a great night. Go Tigers and play neck.